What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream, but this time it'll be on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time instead of Sunday, since Sunday's Christmas Eve here. So doing it on Saturday night, hopefully that works for as many of you as possible. We'll just be hanging out, talking cars, answering your questions, and having a good time like we always do. So join if you can. But getting into the news here this week, we have first off some very good news from Ford. So they've announced this week that the F-150 Raptor R is getting a horsepower bump here for the 2024 model year to go along with the other mild refresh changes that I talked about several weeks ago whenever the 2024 Raptors came out. But so it goes from 700 horsepower to 720 horsepower thanks to a new tune that provides more torque throughout the power band along with reduced air inlet losses according to Autoblog. And while this does mean that it takes the crown now for the most horsepower in a production truck, the now dead TRX still has a slight edge in torque with that doing 650 pound-feet of torque compared to the Raptor R's unchanged 640 pound-feet of torque. You know, it makes no difference though now since the TRX is dead, and it's just nice to see that the Raptor R has continued to get better and faster despite not having any competition anymore. And yeah, you know, it's just really good to see in this age of downsizing and electrification and things going away that we have some more improvements here. Hopefully it continues on beyond just this. But anyway, great to hear that. Also, we got some exciting news from Dodge here this week with our first official teaser here of the production version of the 2025 Dodge Charger. So we get a new little Christmas commercial, very brief look. We only see a few seconds of the front end of the front three-quarter shot here of the new Charger. And it's actually, you know, a pretty good look. And while it's inspired by the concept, you can clearly see some of the big changes they're making for the production version. Again, if this rendering is, you know, accurate. But the biggest change here is the round headlights, which certainly make it look less menacing than the concept in my opinion, but still looks good. The roofline also is a little higher. It has a really large rear window there for like the back seat occupants, which is kind of an interesting look, but I think that'll make it really nice and practical and a very cool kind of you know, like a pillarless hardtop kind of look almost to it, which I'm excited to see in production. Also they you can see there's a deeply sculpted hood still, which they retained from the concept, which is great. One hint that we're looking at a production version as well are the big side mirrors, which you would not put on a cool illustration if you were just you know, doing it just for fun or for a concept. All the concepts have skinny little side mirrors. This has big chunky ones, so definitely seems like we're looking at a production car here. The fine print also notes that while this is a pre-production model shown for illustration purposes only, they also add that it'll be available in late 2024, which I think is one of the biggest Easter eggs here, that this is a legit thing we're looking at, not just some fun artist rendering, if they're giving us, you know, release date info for it. So there you have it. That's when we can expect it at least to go on sale, and so that means we could realistically see a reveal here at any moment. There's lots of car companies that release stuff far more than 9 months before the on sale date, so I have no clue when we're going to get the new Charger reveal. There's really no auto shows to speak of until Chicago, which is in February, and that's usually a truck show. New York's in April, but that seems kind of late. So I'm guessing they might just do something on their own randomly. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm excited to see more next year, and let me know what you think about that new styling there in the comments below. For some not so great news here this week, Korean outlet ET News is reporting, without citing any sources, but they claim that Hyundai will make a production version of the N Vision 74, but don't get excited. They say it'll arrive in the first half of 2026, and this is the first time, according to them, this rumor has been confirmed, but they didn't say who's confirming it. So, you know, they are acting like this is a confirmed thing. The Korean news outlets have sometimes been pretty off with Hyundai speculation, so I'm really hoping this isn't true. But anyway, this is where the news goes downhill, so hold on. So they say it could do 800 horsepower now, which is cool, but also is going to obviously make the price go way up. There's nothing cheap for 800 horsepower. They also say it's going to retain the hydrogen part of the powertrain that the concept had, making it impractical for basically anyone that buys it. But apparently that's going to be a limited problem because they're only, according to this report, the final blow here is they're only going to be building 100 of these things. 70 of them are going to go to consumers. The other 30 are actually going to go to racing and be in racing series. So I'm guessing this is just like a homologation special kind of thing, and that would be it. And so I've been a huge cheerleader for Hyundai for many years. They've had some of the most impressive products in the past 5 years that I've been covering. They have, refreshes and redos that come out faster than everybody else. It's unmatched what they've done in the past 5 years with the Hyundai group. I mean, I've been very impressed. The performance and stuff has all been very good as well. But this is one of the biggest misses. If this turns out to be true, it would be a massive disappointment in my opinion. And it sounds like there is a little bit of legitimacy to back this up as well, because the Hyundai N74 name has recently been trademarked in Europe and Australia, which adds some support that, they're at least strongly considering something officially if they're bothering to trademark this name. And so it's just unfortunate, because all they had to do to capitalize on this massive hype that they've had. I mean, everyone loves the design, and I mean, it doesn't have to be some exclusive, rare, high-end thing. Like, all they had to do, strip away the arrow, make a regular version, and then do an N version with the arrow and all that if you want. Use the EGMP stuff from the Ioniq 5, literally make a coupe version of the Ioniq 5, slap in part spin everything from Ioniq 5, shove it into a coupe body that looks, very close to this, and then, same thing for the N version. Take the awesome stuff. We already got, 640 horsepower in the Ioniq 5N. Plenty of power. You don't need to go up to 800 and some weird hydrogen thing. Just do 640 horsepower. Just copy and paste straight in from the Ioniq 5N, and you're done. You could price it very similar to the Ioniq 5 in the 6, and just have it at that same kind of price point. Or maybe even a slight premium if you want, but keep it around that price point, and then get ready. They would have sold a boatload of these things and would have been an accessible, cool, exciting vehicle. Obviously it still would have been 50 grand probably, but accessible enough, a whole lot more accessible than whatever this thing's going to cost if this turns out to be true. It's also even less practical than a normal supercar. So even supercar buyers that might want to spend $300,000 on one of these things for whatever reason, how many of those people are even going to buy it anyway? I guess it doesn't matter, because there's only 70 of them, and they're never going to get driven anyway, because they'll be collector's pieces and, just all get mothballed instead. But it's just really a shame, and a total waste of momentum and hype if this turns out to be true. And it's almost... To me, it would be worse, I think, if they actually built it versus just leaving it a concept. Because, we see cool concepts all the time, and it's like, oh, boy, I wish I would have made that. But then whenever you, make it, but then you make it exclusive so only super rich people can actually enjoy it, and the rest of us have to just sit there looking on longingly, especially from a company like Hyundai. I mean, we're used to, having snobs and exotics, drive cars that we can't ever afford. But, to have a company like Hyundai go the route of low volume, high profit, exclusive stuff, it certainly seems like it works. It pays off. It pays the bills for a lot of companies. But it just... I don't know, just would not rub me the right way if that turns out to be true. So we will have to wait and see. Hopefully this report is not accurate, but that completely kills all my interest in this car if they make 100 of them. I'm going to be actively annoyed every time I see one. Anyway, though, moving on. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below too. But anyway, moving on here this week, McLaren has revealed the 2024 McLaren GTS, which is a very light refresh for the 4-year-old McLaren GT that I'm sure many of you probably forgot even existed. I certainly forget this car exists for long periods of time. Then I'm like, oh yeah, there's the McLaren GT. It's just kind of funny how this car has already kind of fallen into obscurity really quickly. So this S version anyway gets subtle tweaks here to the front bumper and the side scoops, along with some new wheels. Mechanically, it gets 14 more horsepower from the 4-liter twin-turbo V8, now doing 626 horsepower thanks to a new tune, but the same 465 pound-feet of torque as before. And unsurprisingly, the 0 to 60 time is the same 3.1 seconds as before, but the 0 to 124 mile per hour time does drop by 0.1 second to 8.9 seconds now. Other enhancements are revised steering, standard carbon ceramic brakes now, a faster front lift system, and 22 pounds of weight loss thanks to a recycled carbon fiber roof and a new carbon fiber rear structure. Inside, it strangely also downgrades from a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster to a 10.25-inch cluster instead, and the 7-inch touchscreen remains. Unfortunately, that has not gotten modernized. There's no updated pricing for these yet, but I'm just surprised this car is continuing, because, even by low-volume supercar standards, this has to be underperforming even that. I guess it's already done and, paid off or, paid for as far as the development costs. So it's, I guess, makes sense to keep it around. But it's just interesting how McLaren, they were another company doing such quick advancements in all these new models. And now everything's just getting these very mild refreshes. Same thing with the new 750 or whatever. It's just... Yeah, it just seems like the money's drying up at McLaren because now they're just doing these tiny little changes, and it's hard to really see who's really excited about this, to be totally honest. But nice improvements nonetheless, and enhancements, I'm sure. But is it really going to move the needle on the McLaren GT, which I feel like it's just not a lot of hype there for that. But anyway, interesting to see that nonetheless. And Car and Driver has a new report this week with lots of info on the refreshed 992.2 version of the 911 that's due supposedly early next summer, they're saying, as a 2025 model year vehicle. So they're saying it'll be here in like less than 6 months. They cite 2 dealer sources along with several internal and external documents. According to them, that's what they're relying on here. So it's a pretty lengthy report. I will leave a link in the description for the whole thing if you want to read all the details. I'm just going to go over the highlights here so that we don't have a 10-minute segment here on the 911. But anyway, the biggest thing here is that the GTS version will be featuring a new naturally aspirated 3.6 liter flat 6 boxer engine, and it'll do 483 horsepower, 413 pound-feet of torque. The base and S Carreras will stick with the current 3 liter twin turbo flat 6, but we'll get small power bumps, so they'll stick with the turbos and the smaller displacement. But awesome to see that new motor. The new turbo and the new turbo S will be getting a twin turbo version of that new 3.6 liter motor, which apparently that new motor is being designed to be a real big like catch-all that kind of replaces a bunch of stuff. I think it's going to kind of eventually be the replacement for the 4 liter as well. So anyway, but for the turbos there, though, that will be a downsizing from the 3.8 to the 3.6 here, but it will be more efficient and more advanced and all that, and I'm sure do more power, even though it's slightly smaller there. And then the 4 liter flat 6 will continue in the GT3, but will feature a 48 volt mild hybrid system before supposedly switching to a variant of that new 3.6 liter motor as well in 2027. And according to dealers, in calendar year 2025, a fully hybrid 911 will arrive using an electric motor up front that can do between 80 to 90 horsepower on its own for quick little bursts to give you a little boost basically. And it's powered by a roughly 2 kilowatt hour battery that charges itself from the engine and also from an F1 inspired CARES system supposedly co-developed with Rimac. And there won't be a charge port or anything, so it's going to literally just rely on the car itself. The system is reportedly called Teased, and it only weighs about 55 pounds and will be paired with the 3 liter twin turbo flat 6. So basically the same motor you get in those base Carreras will be paired with this hybrid system. And altogether it'll do 478 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque, so more torque than the GTS with that new motor, but about the same horsepower. And because of this complexity, that hybrid will also be offered only with a PDK, which I guess makes sense, but also would have been cool for Porsche to be one of the first to bring back a manual hybrid that I think has been non-existent since the Honda CRZ. But anyway, so with similar power though to the GTS and a higher cost, with everyone being probably excited about this return of a naturally aspirated brand new motor from Porsche, who's going to go for this hybrid? That's the only question here. There's no advantage really. I mean, yes, you get some extra torque and you get some better fuel economy, but who buys 911 for fuel economy? I was like trying to, like, as I was typing up this news article here, I was like, who's going to want this? Like, I'm really trying to rack my brain. Like, there's maybe 3 people in the world that care about fuel economy in a 911. It seems interesting, but I just feel like no one's going to go for this. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how they market it and package it and stuff. But I'm sure that new naturally aspirated motor is going to be a huge hit, and that GTS will be the one to get for sure for this revised version here. And Car and Driver also has some spy pics in their report that show the design changes, which are going to be including an interesting 10-gill setup. It's a kind of controversial with the way the front bumper is. We'll see how that goes over with the public. But there's also sleeker lights in the back and a fully digital gauge cluster for the first time as well. So head over to their store if you want to check out all that. I can't legally display those pictures here unless I pay tons of money for them. So anyway, interesting to see that. I'm guessing we'll see a full review here pretty soon, so we don't have much longer to wait. But just great news that in these times Porsche's coming out with a brand new 3.6 liter flat 6-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. Like, I was really shocked to hear this, but it's great news. So awesome to hear that. Another vehicle getting a new powertrain here this week is the 2025 Lexus UX300h, which will be getting the same 196 horsepower setup as the Prius, the Corolla, and the Corolla Cross. So kind of switching everything over this next generation hybrid setup. And so with its arrival, the slower UX250h will be dropped, and the 300 will be the only version after 2024. It'll be available in both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive forms, and runs the 2-liter engine and a lithium-ion battery now. Used to be a nickel-metal hydride battery, so now lithium-ion, a little more efficient there, and it'll also do 43 mpg with front-wheel drive and 41 mpg with all-wheel drive, which are slight improvements over the prior version, which was again also slower, and you also get a quicker 7.9 seconds 0 to 60. So there's some engineering impressiveness. You get more performance and better efficiency. There's no losses there. It's win-win all around. And also the 2025 UX will also be getting a new shift-by-wire shifter and a new button layout on the doors, they say, along with the Lexus Safety System Plus 3.0 being standard now, along with a few other minor changes. So there's no pricing for those yet, but it's a nice little improvement. I'm honestly impressed the UX is sticking around as long as it is, but I think it's great they have something at that point in the lineup. It's a nice entry level to Lexus, and we'll see what they do down the road. But for now, I think that's a really nice thing. They're keeping it around. And also, Lexus has also debuted a new front-wheel drive version of the RZ this week called the RZ300e. So it's essentially the same setup as the front-wheel drive BZ4X, meaning a 201 horsepower front motor, a 72.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and now the best range of any RZ with 266 miles of range is the top there for that one. Losing the all-wheel drive does drop the price by $4,700 as well, starting at $55,150 now. It goes on sale this month alongside the other 2024 RZs, so coming pretty quickly here, and great to see them rolling out the rest of the lineup here, making it a little more affordable. Mercedes this week has an interesting little debut here. They rolled out a new turquoise warning light that'll go along with the Level 3 autonomous system that'll be testing on public roads here for the next 2 years in California and Nevada before becoming a feature that'll be available to the public here in the 2026 model year EQS and S-Class sedans. And so these turquoise lights will appear in the headlights, taillights, and side mirrors to indicate when the driver isn't the one doing the driving. And they'll be hoping, at least Mercedes is hoping, that this color will become universal globally and just be like the known color that, okay, that car is driving itself. Kind of be a nice warning thing that everyone will understand. They picked that color because it's not a color that can be confused with other colors they're hoping, for other emergency services and, every other existing color you see in other indicator systems in cars. So that's why they chose that. And supposedly, as far as this system too, there's been talk about it in the past, but the basic thing is here, it's going to allow drivers to take their hands off the wheel and their eyes off the road to perform secondary activities on the infotainment display, like going through emails and online shopping, they say, while doing speeds of under 40 miles per hour. 40 miles per hour is the limit for this system, so it kind of limits the amount of risk there, because at least you're not going super fast. And they also did add that there's multiple fail safes for all of these systems, so if the primary system fails, there will be a backup system that will kick in automatically to control the car safely, and until the driver can take over there. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, Mercedes is, again, they're one of the top companies as far as safety and technology and all that. So I have cautious optimism that they can do this fairly well. And the fact that it's got, pretty low limits with, again, the 40 mile per hour thing and stuff. We'll see how it plays out for them. I'm very curious to see how the testing goes over the next 2 years here. Hopefully it goes well and turns out to be safe and good. So anyway, interesting to see that, and keep an eye out if you're in California or Nevada. If you see turquoise lights, you will know that car is not being driven by the driver. So crazy stuff there. Also, Volkswagen Group became one of the last dominoes here really to fall in the NACS charging port switchover. So this week they announced that Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, and Scout Motors, which I guess those will be shipping after 2025, so they won't ever have CCS ports. But anyway, all those brands will begin getting NACS ports in 2025 and get access to the Tesla Supercharger network to go along with that as well. And then, of course, there'll be an adapter made before then, to allow CCS vehicles to charge on the Supercharger network as well. And so they didn't mention Bentley or Bugatti or Lamborghini, but none of those brands have anything electric. I guess they got plug-in hybrid stuff coming, but typically you don't fast charge plug-in hybrids. So, we will see about those, but I'm sure, everyone's going to be switched over, in the next couple of years here. So it kind of goes without saying for there. The last real holdout as far as big companies goes is Stellantis. I think Mazda also hasn't announced it, but they really don't have anything electric right now, aside from now the plug-in hybrid CX-90, at least here in the States. But so Stellantis is really the last big one aside. And once that's done, then it's basically everyone has switched over. But at this point, it already is basically everyone here. So very interesting. I was kind of curious if Volkswagen was going to be a holdout, but it sounds like they are going along with the flow of everyone else, and they're going to make the switch too here. So very interesting to see that. Another big announcement this week is that Canada has finalized their 2035 EV mandate rules here for zero emissions vehicles. So they introduced the plans back in 2021, so this isn't news about Canada switching over in 2035, but this week they just finalized those rules, requiring all light-duty new vehicle sales to either be electric or plug-in hybrid starting in 2035. And so that last big concession with the plug-in hybrids is crucial here. So it means that the more northern, remote parts of Canada, even if they don't get a ton of chargers out there, which probably will be one of the last places to get a robust charging network, they will have the option of gas-powered stuff to keep them going. And, it's not going to be a worry there for those people. Also, same thing for apartment dwellers, people that are street parkers, they will still have a gas-powered option available here, in the future, beyond 2035. And, of course, used stuff will still be totally fine well beyond that as well. Now, as far as the plug-in hybrids, in order for it to be a legit plug-in hybrid that is allowed to be sold beyond 2035 here, you're not allowed to have a tiny little battery like we're seeing currently with some of these high-performance things, like Mercedes having these 8-mile range batteries. It's not going to be anything like that. So they're requiring an electric range of at least 80 kilometers, which is about 50 miles, which is higher than most plug-in hybrids these days, but that should be easily attainable in 11 years or so from now. So, not a big ask there from a plug-in hybrid, in 2035. So it should be pretty easy to get at that point. Before 2035, though, there will be a ramp up here that begins in 2026, with 20% of new cars having to be either EVs or those plug-in hybrids with that range. And that percentage goes up to 60% by 2030. But Canada's actually kind of made some good progress already here with EVs this year already. They're over 12% of sales for the year so far. So they're well on their way to hitting that 2026 target, potentially even ahead of time. They might hit it, in 2025. So we'll see. But anyway, good to see that progress is being made, and that, we'll see how this whole transition plays out. But I think the plug-in hybrid thing is one that a lot of these people, a lot of these countries that are doing these mandates, and states and stuff that are doing these mandates, they're adding that plug-in hybrid thing. And I think that's a really good gateway thing to soften this rule, so it's not gloom and doom, and you still have the option of gas. You still have that option for those people who still maybe even 11 years, even if the charging network is amazing in 11 years, still will have that option of a gas powered thing. And I think that's really important. And I think with that, these rules are a whole lot less intimidating when you add in the plug-in hybrid thing. So anyway, very interesting to see that. And I think, that means anything fun with, you can still have a V8 powered Mustang that still has a battery pack for 50 miles of range, and you're good, So I think we can still kind of have our cake and eat it too, even with these rules. So anyway, interesting to, hear that. And as we all know, though, many people are not excited about this switch over for a variety of reasons, including many dealers especially. And this week, Automotive News reported an interesting statistic that I wanted to talk about here. So they're reporting that the number of Buick dealers in the U.S. dropped by nearly half in 2023, 47% to be exact, from 1,958 dealers down to about 1,000 dealers. So back in 2022, GM gave Buick dealers an option here to either spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade their dealers to have, chargers and, have everything they need to service and sell EVs, or they offered a buyout, which I think for Cadillac dealers that were offered a similar deal, it was, something close to $500,000, depending on the dealer and all that, I think. And so anyway, a lot of dealers just decided, to close up shop. But it's interesting that, apparently the deal was good enough that basically half of all the Buick dealers said, yep, we don't need it. And they just walked away and closed up shop. So, it seems like Buick corporate doesn't seem to be too bothered by it, though, with their vice president here recently saying to Automotive News that I'm really pleased with where we are. The network where we are now is a good size. It's with dealers who are focused on the business, who've shown that they can recover the volume that the dealers who transitioned away were doing. And supposedly the 47% of dealers only accounted for about 20% of sales. So kind of seems like a lot of them were the slacking dealers anyway that, weren't doing huge numbers regardless. That could be part of why that deal made sense for some of them. And Buick noted that 89% of America still lives within 25 miles of a Buick dealer. So again, they feel like it's still totally fine the way it is. But it's still pretty crazy to hear that literally half the Buick dealers are just dropping off the map as a result of this switchover. So we will see, how other brands dealers fare, but it's a big cost, and if these dealers aren't totally sold on this being the future, then I can see getting out of the business could make some sense. So anyway, interesting to hear that. And for the last news story here this week, another GM related thing that's going away is the Camaro. Which has officially ended production for good. And this is another sad one. I didn't want to report on this. Just don't, it's just one of those things you just don't like hearing. But they ended up ending production a month ahead of schedule. It wasn't supposed to end until January. I don't know why they didn't churn them out until January. I'm assuming they had a good reason, but it's just, even less vehicles produced than we were hoping. And so, yes, the last Camaro was built on December 14th, and they didn't put out a picture of it or anything. I think they just, signed the seat, and it seemed like it wasn't very ceremonious. I'm not sure why. I guess it's appropriate considering how GM just neglected the Camaro for so many years. They made an amazing product, and then they didn't market it. They didn't, put it out there very much, and so I guess this is par for the course and what we should have expected, but it doesn't seem like they had any kind of ta-da thing with the last one here. But GM previously said that as far as the future goes, that while we are not announcing an immediate successor today, rest assured this is not the end of Camaro's story. So, I hope it can return with gas power. We thought that this story was over for the Charger, and now we're seeing some reports of it getting a 6-cylinder engine here. So. Maybe they can find a way to keep a gas-powered Camaro around here as well, and maybe it's just going to be a few years of a gap like we had in the early 2000s, and maybe we'll get some awesome fire-breathing Camaro here. But, I'm more likely to think that it's going to just end up being some type of electric thing when it does come back, and that's assuming it even comes back as a two-door. Could end up being some four-door crossover thing with the way all these names are getting butchered these days. Who knows what to expect. So yes, Camaro name could come back, but that might not necessarily be something Camaro fans want, depending on what form it takes. But anyway, so Camaro has been good to me, and it's another one, 2 weeks in a row here. I gotta do a toast to the Camaro because some of the most watched reviews on this channel of all time, and those really helped the channel, reviewing all the Camaros that I did. Many of you probably have been around since then, remember, driving the SS and the, 1LEs and the ZL1s and even the V6 Camaro. I think even that video's got like 1 million views or something on YouTube here. So Camaro's been good to me, so I gotta toast it here. So I got my Canadian club here this week, and so yeah, just another real shame. We will see what ends up happening in the future. I'd like to be optimistic, but these days it's hard to be with the way everything's going away. But cheers to the Camaro, and man, what an awesome car. So underappreciated. Just a few critical flaws of the visibility and stuff, which weren't really deal breakers. It's still an amazing car. If you're ever considering one, or you want to snatch up one of these last ones, I'm sure they'll be collectible. Get one while you can here, while there's a little bit of dealer inventory, because I think they're gonna appreciate and be always sought after and very desirable. But cheers to the Camaro. What a great run. Again, hopefully it isn't the end for the Camaro as we know it, but in case it is, man, what an amazing history. And a real sad day for enthusiasts here, the end of the Camaro here, but cheers to Camaro. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we didn't have any new members join this past week. We had a bunch of people that were able to rejoin thanks to Kyle's very generous gifting every week in the live stream. And so cheers to you, Kyle, for your support and for allowing so many dozens and dozens of people to become members on the channel here. I really appreciate it. I'm sure all of those members do as well. And so this week, cheers to Kyle. And thanks so much, Kyle, for all your support. For anyone else that would like to join, become a member, and get the priority answering in the live streams and all the other perks that come with membership, there's always join buttons here on the video page, also on the channel page, and also a link in the description. By the way, thank you all very much for watching. Cheers to Kyle once again for his generosity, and I also want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week for the final weekly update of the year. It'll be a top 10 video, unless there's some crazy news stuff, but otherwise I'm just going to focus on the top 10 of the year here, and just my thoughts and looking back on the last year here, and what to look forward to in 2024. So stay tuned, definitely join for that next week if you can. Hey, thank you all very much for watching and for your support of the weekly updates here this year. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers, take care, and happy holidays.